Probably no one's reputation has been blunted more unfairly by Black Lives Matter than Officer Darren Wilson of the Ferguson Police Department. One could say that his shooting of Michael Brown started the modern era of race riots. Darren Wilson was never tried for the shooting, of course, because the district attorney wisely gave the county grand jury both inculpatory and exculpatory evidence. But a lot of people thought that the grand jury should have indicted anyway, that there was still plenty of evidence to at least go to trial. And most, if not all, of this evidence emanated from a community of witnesses who claimed to see it all happen. The story they told was that Officer Wilson shot Michael Brown as he had his hands up, begging not to be shot. The hands up, don't shoot myth was born. But what did the witnesses actually say? More importantly, why didn't their testimony sway the grand jury to indict Officer Wilson? Well, in this two-part series, I'm going to tell you. And I'm going to start with those who gave credible testimony, and I'm going to use a spreadsheet that will convince even the most diehard Michael Brown apologist to think twice about supporting his martyrdom. Well, except for those wanting Darren Wilson's blood and are beyond hope of rational thought. Most of them. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With cold, blunt analysis cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnny Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's time for the Johnny Walker Dread Show.
So why bring Darren Wilson up? It's been a decade since the shootings. I believe that we should continually bring this case up, keep it simmering, because it's a good idea to remind the world just how wrong BLM got it. The information I'm about to show you is from the official DOJ report. The DOJ at that time was headed by Eric Holder, who was a black man appointed by Barack Obama. So this DOJ is hardly the type that is going to want to exonerate a white cop for shooting a black kid. If you want to read the report for yourself, I will link it in the description below. I'm going to present 3 categories of testimony. I didn't make up these categories. These are from the official report. The first is credible exculpatory. For all you BLM supporters out there, exculpatory means that their testimony would tend to exonerate Officer Wilson. That means their testimony would make Officer Wilson look innocent. These witnesses would likely be called by the defense. The next category which I will cover in this video is credible inculpatory. That is, credible testimony that would lean toward convicting Officer Wilson. If you're a supporter of BLM and this is a little difficult for you, think of inculpatory as opposite of exculpatory, assuming you know what exculpatory means. Never mind. Another category the DOJ defined was not credible, where they threw all the crazy stuff into, regardless of whether it painted Darren Wilson in a good light or not. I will go over that worksheet in my next video, and it's fascinating to say the least. So what do we mean by credible? Well, there were a number of criteria that the DOJ used to assess the credibility of testimony. For one, some of the witnesses admitted to lying, and that obviously is a problem, although with one exception. Perhaps the most pervasive criterion centered on forensic evidence. If a witness described something that could not have possibly happened, then that would be a mark against them. For example, some claimed they saw Darren Wilson shoot Michael Brown in the back as he ran, including Brown's buddy Dorian Johnson, but 3 independent autopsies found no shots in the back. So what did these witnesses really see? There was another aspect of the forensic evidence that the police never told the public before questioning witnesses, and this evidence would deep six a ton of testimony. You see, many of those claiming to have seen the action came upon the scene after the fact. This is what they saw: Darren Wilson's police car at an angle in the middle of the street, Officer Darren Wilson, and the body of Michael Brown. Around that time, Michael Brown's buddy, Dorian Johnson, began telling the crowd and the media, but not the police, who he tried to evade, that Brown was shot in the back, turned around, raised his hands, pleaded for his life, and that Darren Wilson just gunned him down, execution style. And nothing about the position of Brown's body dispels this notion. But there was one aspect of the altercation that these witnesses did not know about when they fabricated their stories. Michael Brown and Officer Wilson initially fought at Officer Wilson's SUV, with Brown assaulting Wilson through the driver's side window. Wilson shot Brown at close range, only inches from Brown's hand. This shot went through Brown's thumb, so he's bleeding. The detectives charted the blood drops along the path that led from the SUV to Brown's body. But then detectives noticed that there were drops that led past the body, further down the street from the patrol car. But if Brown was gunned down as he ran, as many witnesses claimed, or he was gunned down after stopping, turning around, and standing still, which many other witnesses claimed, how did the blood drops appear further down the street? So they examined Officer Wilson's testimony, and it all made sense. Wilson claimed that Michael Brown ran from his patrol car, stopped, turned around, and then charged him. There really was no other explanation for the blood drops. These phony witnesses didn't know that Michael Brown was bleeding and that his blood dripped further down the street. The police didn't release that information and instead used it as a litmus test for honesty. Pretty smart. That's one reason why it's not always a good idea to release evidence, such as body cam footage, to the public right away. Usually it's a good idea to interview all potential witnesses first to find out who will tell the truth on the stand, then release the body cam footage. So back to our criteria. Some of the testimony came from those who claimed to have seen what happened, but upon further investigation, it was clear that they probably couldn't have seen what they claimed from their vantage point. For example, some of them admitted that they were distracted and not looking at the event as it unfolded. Some of the witnesses talked to other witnesses before they gave their testimony. Others went to the media first before the police. Each witness was interviewed by multiple police agencies, usually two, as well as the grand jury. Were their testimonies consistent? Well, that was another criterion that the DOJ investigated. Along the same lines, did their testimony agree with what they told the media? Some witnesses told others what happened, but then ran off when the police came looking to question them. Others refused to appear in front of the grand jury once summoned. Finally, some witnesses had prior convictions for crimes of dishonesty, such as theft. Not all prior convictions are necessarily admissible in court. For example, a prior conviction for assault wouldn't be heard by the jury, but forgery would. It's important to note that the DOJ took into account all of these criteria and estimated whether the witness would stand up to cross-examination. So failing any one category wouldn't necessarily make the witness incredible. So let's now take a look at the witness lists. Given these criteria, the DOJ estimated that the defense could call up 7 witnesses that would provide testimony that backed Darren Wilson's claims of innocence and that would hold sway with the jury. That doesn't mean that their testimonies were perfect, and so we will now go through each one. Witness 102, a biracial male, didn't have any problems with his testimony, as didn't Witness 104. Witness 103 had a prior conviction for a dishonesty crime, but he harbored a lot of resentment against cops on this account. Also, his own son was shot by the cops. He was reluctant to provide testimony because, as he said it, snitches get stitches. However, he could always be subpoenaed, so Witness 103 would be a good witness for Officer Wilson. Witness 105's testimony didn't suffer any glaring problems, except she claimed that Officer Wilson was driving a car, not an SUV. The DOJ estimated that this mistake would not be especially damning. Witness 108's testimony was credible, except he refused any follow-up questions from police, saying that he feared retribution from the community. But I don't understand. The community wants the truth, right? Right? Witness 109 also refused follow-up questions for the same reason. He originally called a hot tip line describing what happened. He also claimed that the dude in the dreads on TV, that is, Michael Brown's friend Dorian Johnson, lied. However, what he told the hot tip line was credible. When the police knocked on Witness 113's door, she initially gave the usual hands up, don't shoot story. But then police told her that her story didn't jive with forensic evidence. Unlike all the others caught in their own words, she then admitted that she lied, but maintained that she did, in fact, see what happened. She then gave an account that matched the forensic evidence. She was then summoned by the grand jury for this testimony, but barricaded herself inside her apartment with a couch. But then again, the defense could always force her to take the stand. So overall, the defense had 7 witnesses that they could put on the stand. But what about those the prosecution could rely on? Again, it comes down to credibility. If you're the prosecutor, you don't want a witness up there that's going to get Perry Masoned. So, how many witnesses did the DOJ figure the prosecution could rely on? Let's look. None. None. 0. Nada. Nope. There wasn't a single witness that the DOJ could find that clearly saw what happened and was honest in their testimony that would help convict Darren Wilson. Let that soak in. Just a quick review. 3 autopsies, 1 commissioned by the family, all provided fuel for the defense that this was self-defense. All of the forensic evidence at the crime scene backed Darren Wilson's story that Michael Brown was charging him when he opened fire. 7 witnesses came forward and provided credible testimony that supported the defense. The prosecution would not be able to find a single credible witness that they could call to the stand to further their case. Gee, I wonder why the grand jury decided that it would be in everyone's best interest to not try Darren Wilson for murder. Now, there were other witnesses, of course, who claimed to have seen what happened. 24 to be exact, but in my next video, you'll see why the prosecution wouldn't have allowed them to venture within a country mile of the witness stand. Like my video and subscribe to my channel, and spread this video around. We really need to get the truth out about Darren Wilson, a good cop bastardized by Black Lives Matter.